let's get into this really interesting idea. Sometimes the hardest language barrier isn't, something totally foreign. It's one you think you know.
Exactly.
We're doing a deep dive today into regional English, and that George Bernard Shaw quote feels like the perfect start. The United States and Great Britain are two countries separated by a common language.
Right, and that separation, it definitely stretches across the Atlantic, right into Ireland, the Emerald Isle. Our mission really is to understand how culture, how regional dialects actually shape the sound of English.
Yeah.
We're focusing on American and Irish English today.
And this matters, right, for anyone trying to communicate better.
Oh, absolutely. Whether it's for work or maybe you're planning a trip, getting those little pronunciation details down, that's where real confidence comes from. It helps you feel understood.
Okay, so let's get into the specifics, because it's usually not the big grammar rules or fancy words that trip people up. Our sources point to something quite technical: consonant clusters at the start of words. Stuff like S in start or S in stand. These little combinations, that's where the action is.
That's often where you hear the really distinct differences, yeah. It's subtle, but it's there. When you compare how, say, an American says words like start, speak, or spare,
Okay.
versus how an Irish speaker might say them, a key difference is often aspiration.
Aspiration. What exactly is that?
Think of it as a little puff of air.
Right.
So in standard American English, if you have an S followed by a T, P, or K at the start,
Right.
like in start.
Right.
Try saying it now. Start. You feel that little burst of air after the S, right?
Yeah, I do. Starty.
Okay, so in many Irish dialects, that puff, that aspiration, it's often much softer, or maybe the timing feels different because the vowel before it shifts slightly.
Oh.
It makes the word sound, well, smoother, less percussive maybe.
Right.
And that's really key if you want to, tune your ear to sound like a local.
So less put and speak, less tut and start.
Kind of, yeah. You hear it in words like smart, snack, skim, step two. It's a pattern.
That's a fascinating detail, that puff of air. But, is focusing just on these initial sounds, isn't that maybe a bit granular for the average person trying to learn?
Well, it's a fair question.
Mm-hmm.
But thinking about how sounds are made lets us see language almost like an artifact of history.
Okay.
If pronunciation is shaped by culture and history, let's actually connect these sounds to that bigger story.
Right. Let's connect the sounds to the actual place. The Ireland's history. How does that work?
Okay, so if we scan through Irish history, one really important thing is that Irish English grew up alongside the Irish language Gaelic. So some ways of pronouncing things in Gaelic probably influenced how English consonant clusters were adopted. It gives Irish English its unique sort of texture.
Ah, interesting.
You can start way back. Think about the earliest hunter-gatherers, then the smart farming communities. But history also involved waves of change, like invasions, Vikings, Normans, and much later, events like the Great Famine, which led to huge emigration.
So all that upheaval, centuries of it, it actually shaped how people spoke English there.
Exactly. You really have to spare a thought for that whole context.
Yeah.
The words might be English, but the experience behind them, the history, it influenced the melody of the language.
The melody, you mean the rhythm and tone?
Precisely. The prosody. It often has this more lilting feel compared to some other Englishes. That resilience, adapting the language while keeping traditions alive.
Yeah.
That sparked things like their incredible music and storytelling, which traveled across the ocean too.
And knowing that background really changes how you hear it, doesn't it? It's not just an accent, it's history speaking. So whether you want to, play hurling or just soak in the landscape, like the SNOW on the mountains or the Bealui Lakes, understanding this adds a whole layer.
It absolutely does. It helps you connect. You feel less like a tourist just skimming the surface.
Right. Whether you just skim a travel guide or actually step onto Irish soil.
Yeah. The goal is you can speak with people, feel comfortable, and really smile about the experience, Connect authentically.
So it goes beyond just getting the pronunciation right?
Definitely. But if you do want to work on that accuracy to build that confidence, our sources mentioned resources. Things like interactive guides, listening practice, personalized feedback from tutors, like the stuff you might find on platforms such as RuiEnglish, for example. They can really help hone that pronunciation.
That makes sense. Practice and feedback are key. Okay, we've talked about specific sounds like those consonant clusters and how they link back to Ireland's deep and sometimes difficult history. So here's something for you, our listener, to think about. Considering that whole historical tapestry, the invasions, the resilience, the emigration, the music, how do you think all of that might specifically influence the pace and the cadence, the actual rhythm of how Irish people speak today? beyond just those initial consonants. Something to mull over on your own deep dive.